The Dave LewAllen podcast is sponsored by Sherm's Candy, a Michigan-based company that specializes in awesome tasting candy that's in the shape of Michigan. And welcome back to the Dave LewAllen podcast. We cover sports stories, newsmakers, and difference makers in our community and across the state of Michigan. So pleased that you're with us today. If you're watching on YouTube or on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, your go-to source for podcasts. Certainly share this with a friend as we continue to grow our audience and bring you great conversations. And that conversation today centers around the Detroit Auto Show, returning to January, the traditional dates, in 2025. And to talk about that and the history and what's new and what's great, Alberts and Sam Klemet, the co-executive directors of the Detroit Auto Dealers Association and the directors of the Detroit Auto Show. Gentlemen, thank you for both being here today to talk about the show, which is rapidly approaching, and it's an incredibly busy time, I know.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're excited. We've been 6 years from having a show in January because of pandemic and looking to try electric vehicles outside in September. Glad we went through it all, but it's great to be back, I think, in the month that the show belongs, and January is exciting, but we're going through Christmas and all that too, so there's a lot to take on during this time.
All right, I mentioned co-executive directors, and we'll get into that and the background and the history and the reason for it, but let's talk about some of the details of the show right off the top. Back in the traditional January time frame, January 10th to the 20th, this year. Why is that return, Rod, important for the show?
Well, first, I believe having the first show of the year in regard to with product, and it's been that way in Detroit up through until the last 6 years. We had it in January for all those years, and I think people it's a great time to get out. You get cabin fever and to see that new product you might want to buy when it comes in spring of the year or right now too. But the whole idea of getting it back in a month where people see it as they have in the past and also get excited about buying a vehicle and engaging with the customer is really what we're trying to do and excite them.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. That start of the years is an important time, and there's so much history and tradition there that I think people are comfortable with that January time frame. It's right after the holidays. There, as Rod mentioned, there's some cabin fever, and it's something to look forward to kind of kick off the year. Obviously, a lot going on in Detroit right now, and to be kind of that kickoff part of the year is really special.
And I know there's things new to talk about with this year's show. One of the things that I noticed right off the bat is Charity Preview, which has typically been the Friday of the first week of the show. I mean, you're hitting Charity Preview right off the top this year. Tell me about that change.
Yeah, so January 10th is Charity Preview this year. And it's kind of an interesting time because, as Rod mentioned, we're evolving the show and we're figuring out different ways that it works. And, January 10th, we start the day with some awards. We'll have our Automotive Press Association awards. We'll have the NACTOY, the Car, Utility, and Truck of the Year awards that'll be announced earlier that day. Eyes on Design. I mean, we have a lot of programming that happens that day. We'll give, the press a little bit of an access point earlier in the day. And then we have Charity Preview. And I think that's a really good way because, again, not only is it a party, but the benefit to the local children's charities is huge, right? So, to Rod's credit, he's helped raise over $125 million over the last 30 years. I think that really sets the tone for the rest of the week. It lets people know that we're not just about a show to see cars, we're about impacting the community, and that's a really good way to start.
Well, and the attention that Charity Preview rightfully receives, and the show itself with the economic impact over the 10 or so days of the show, it's massive for Detroit. Still important, even as you say, the show evolves.
Yeah, if you realize too, in January, which is a slow time for Detroit businesses downtown and restaurants, and you can have a 10-day, 11-day show counting Charity Preview that people are downtown and going to the restaurants and engaging in the community downtown overall, it's a game changer, and it kicks off the year in the right way. So if we can be that part to play our role and be part of that economic impact and also help out charities, especially on the kickoff on Charity Preview, I think it's very meaningful. Too, we're going to have probably 1,000+ media coming in, and we'll have 14 or 15 countries. We still have people coming in because of APA and NACTOY, and all those things going on, again, brings light to Detroit. And now they got this Michelin Media Guide for restaurants. We've got so many restaurants now. There's a lot to do downtown.
Oh, yeah.
So we just want to be a part of that change and do what we can, and not just about selling a car, but also about doing something for the community.
You mentioned some of the media stuff and the awards on day one, and then the charity preview. How about the public aspect of the show? When does the show open to the public, and are there any changes in that regard?
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, so it opens up the next day, so the 11th through the 20th, and we're lucky this year because we go through the MLK holiday, so we have the extra day when offices and schools are closed. So hopefully we have more people that can come down to Huntington Place on that last Monday as well. But I think the biggest thing for us is it's become more of a consumer focused show, right? We want people to come down, experience the different vehicles that are out there. We've added tracks this year, so we'll have 4 experiential tracks that people can actually get in the vehicles, they can ride, they can see what it's like for them and their families. And I think that's a big piece. It's not just coming down and looking, it's actually experiencing what these vehicles have to offer. And that's going to be something that I think is a noticeable change for the people that come down.
Sam Klemet, Rod Alberts, co-executive directors of the Detroit Auto Dealers Association, joining us today on the Dave LewAllen podcast. Happy to tell you about a sponsor of this podcast as well, Sherm's Candy. And Sherm's Candy wants to put a smile on faces this Christmas with a taste of Michigan. Sherm's Candy offers delicious candies, all playfully shaped like the Mitten State itself. Their products include classic Misha gummies, a delightful taste of gummy goodness, perfect for any candy lover. Decadent chocolate Misha gummies. Indulge someone special with a chocolatey experience this holiday season. Tart and tangy sour Misha gummies. Pucker up for a stocking stuffer that will leave a lasting impression. Sherm's Candy doesn't forget about furry friends either. Misha Pups are a tasty treat made just for dogs, ensuring everyone gets a Christmas treat. Find Sherm's Candy at many fine retailers across Michigan or order online at shermscandy.com for a unique and delightful Christmas gift. Talking Detroit Auto Show today on the Dave LewAllen podcast with Rod Alberts and Sam Klemet. They're the men that put this all together, make it happen. And it's an auto show that returns to the traditional January dates this year. All right, we've talked a little bit about that change, about the public aspect of the show. Touch on the economic impact as well. $350 million a year, roughly, for the economic impact for this show, which is huge.
Yeah, we, over the many, many years that we've had the internationalizing of the show, and we would have a 2-month move-in before the show begins on a temporary structure build, which is pretty amazing in itself. So we were in the building a long time. It was probably $350 million at that time. We're probably looking at closer to $150, $200 million now, but quite frankly, that's like a Super Bowl or 2 and a few NFL drafts. So, when you make comparisons, you got to look at what you really have here, and it's every year. So we're really proud of that aspect. And again, it's such a staple for Detroit. It's a show. We need it. We're the Motor City. We need a show like this. It's important to show the rest of the world that we're on this edge of technology with cars, and all that's part of that experience and education for the customer too, not just the media. So we're excited about that and what we can do for the economy. Just icing on the cake.
One of the things that was part of this year's auto show buildup was the new campaign, "My Drive, My City, My Show," and I think, Sam, that's part of your role in coming on board and some of that evolving. And the video that's on your website that I saw, it is interesting for sure in telling the story. And I loved one of the lines in that video. It's not about what we aren't, but who we are.
Yeah.
We are the Motor City, and this is where we tell our story. And it really capsulizes what the auto show is about.
Yeah, we saw a really unique opportunity. I mean, as we talked about the move back to January, we kind of had to remind people that we're coming back to January. We were in September for the last couple of years, and so to build some of that awareness, we needed to get a little bit of a runway, and we saw this campaign as an opportunity to do that. Detroit is uniquely positioned to talk about the automotive industry. There are auto shows all over the country, all over the world, but I think ours is really different because we have the Detroit Three, which really stands out. The foundation of the city was built on the auto industry and the people that worked on the lines and worked in the executive offices. But so we have a chance to tell that story. And I think that, when Rod hired me, with the conversation we had were, well, what can we do differently to move the show forward? Well, I think we have to have a presence 365 days a year. And this campaign allows us to do that. So we started in September. So that's, 5 months before the show. And then the next 11 months after, we're going to keep telling these stories. So there's an awareness about the auto show, the auto industry, and the people that make this city great through that campaign. So we're really proud of it.
The show evolving, as we've mentioned. You had the pandemic, which didn't help anybody, of course. September, now back to January. But also, auto shows everywhere have changed, right? I mean, technology has played a role in changing auto shows. Automakers can introduce new vehicles and concepts. They can do that anywhere, anytime they want, because technology now allows that. There have been challenges for sure. Where are we today in terms of, this show and auto shows, if you will, in general, in your view, Rod?
Yeah, that's a loaded question in a lot of ways because, first of all, I've been to many shows over my 30 years. That's part of what you have to do to make a benchmark and compare.
And some are gone.
Well, if you take the top shows in the world, if you go back 5-10 years ago, and you've got Frankfurt, which was the granddaddy of shows, it's no longer in Frankfurt, it's in Munich, and it's a different show. It's a technology show. Paris shows come back, but not as it was. And Geneva, which was I call it the country club show. Everybody would go there and hang out, but it is no longer. So all these things that have changed and evolved have to do with having a good cornerstone. You got to have something to really build on. We have a dealer body that can be a part of this too, because you have 30 brands plus ultra luxury can make it 40 or 45. And we have dealers to support it. But then from the corporate side with the big three here in Detroit. And I really believe that we're in a place now. I've been okay with what I've done for 30 years. I mean, I'm pleased with that and proud of. But I could tell it was time for change. And what we've learned in the last 5 years and transferring that over to Sam here and what he's got a vision for and this whole campaign that he came up with, it's a game changer. And it told me that we got the right guy, the right person to lead DADA and also the auto show in the future, because embracing this change on dynamics of technology, educating the consumer and the people about what to look forward to, and it's changing constantly. That's our role. That's part of our job at DADA and with the show itself. So that's been a new one. We didn't have to do that before. And now Sam comes in, he gets it, new generation of thinking and looking forward, and Sam's really got that gift. So I'm excited for it. It's a transition that I didn't know how it would look a year ago before he came on, but we're in a great place now, and I promise you, when you look at the show in 5 years, it's going to be exciting, different, and it's going to be something the Motor City can be proud of, starting this year and building in the next 5 years.
You're on the spot, man.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, very much so.
What do you think of that? Yeah,
it's good.
Teed it up very nicely.
Yeah, but you'd rather be, like Ryan and I have talked about this analogy all the time, you'd rather be in the batter's box, right, than sitting in the dugout. And so this is a great spot. I'm from Metro Detroit. I grew up in this area, and I know what the show means. I have family members that worked in the auto industry. So it is bigger than just an 11-day show at a convention center. It means so much more to the city. And so to be a part of that and to be a part of that history is really exhilarating for me.
Hey, don't be surprised too. I mean, Sam, I'm all big on sports and all that too. And I played baseball a little bit, but don't want to talk about that today. But the Lions and Sam being very engaged with that and talking to the people over there. Don't be surprised if you see some engagement with the show itself and having them down there and being part of the show, especially with the hype that you'll see during that time with the playoffs. So we just want to make sure that everything we do is going to be connected with the community, and Sam's making sure of that.
Yeah, we're a stage, right? We're a stage for the city to show itself off, and we have 11 days of the world looking at us. They look at the auto industry, but they get to look at Detroit too. And so if we can bring in community partners, teams like the Lions, talk about restaurants, talk about other charities and community groups, like that's a platform that you don't get it all the time, and we're going to take advantage of that.
Well, we certainly benefited from the NFL draft being in Detroit and the national exposure and beyond that provided a very positive image of Detroit and the turnout and the response. And yes, for all of these years, the auto show has done the same for the city.
Yeah. You have been involved with the show many, many years. You were down on Charity Preview.
Yes.
So that just shows you the partnerships we've had with great brands, with the stations, the networks, and yourself that know so much about it, and you believe in the show as much as we do and the charities that it goes to. One of the things we talked about on the consumer side, you think about it, we're a multifaceted show because we have media, and then we have charity, and then we have public days. Then we have an industry time, too, with a forum that we'll have with people coming in and interacting between themselves on developing the industry and technology and partnerships. So the one thing, though, that really is coming out that we're finding that consumers want, especially the younger buyers, is having product on the show floor that you can experience. If you would have told me 10 years ago that we would have internal combustible engines and electric vehicles that you could get into and ride around the track and have 30 different vehicles, I'm not sure I'd have believed it.
Yeah.
But today we have that. And that's going to be a difference maker because you can do that in the middle of winter in the warmth of the building and get in that car and ride around in it.
Well, and especially given where we are with a transition that is happening in some ways with fits and starts. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
internal combustion to, EVs. It looks, I mean, it's up and down, right? And so
Right.
to be able to do that, to offer that opportunity, even to sit in or even a short track, if you will, experience of, I think that's really, really
It's exciting.
important.
And that's the tracks we're going to be putting in on the show floor with the 30 some odd cars. But also we're going to have the Camp Jeep, which, that goes right through the roof of the building practically when you get up there in the catwalk, and then also Bronco Mountain. So don't be surprised that when you get down there, you're like, okay, am I at Cedar Point here or something? We got things we can do here. Be here a while. But there's other things in store, Sam, that you got in mind too that we can do down there.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. I mean, you want to have people have experiential experiences for like, and so we're partnering with groups like the Michigan Science Center, right? So bringing them down there, and we're like, well, what is their fit? Well, there's a lot of STEM activities where if we're talking about the future of the industry, well, we need engineers, and so how do you develop an interest in engineering? You do some fun things as a kid, and you develop that core interest as a child. So there's all kinds of partners that we're going to bring in, and as Rod mentioned, it'll feel very much like you're walking into like an amusement park, but intentional that way.
The big three and support for the auto show remains strong. Product, I mean, are we going to see some new introductions? I mean, how has that evolved along with the show?
Yeah, we're really proud of the support that we've gotten from the Detroit Three. I think they, again, understand that this is a hometown show. And so in a lot of ways, it's not only the products that you show, but it's the experience that you give to the consumers that are coming down. It's almost a thank you for the people of Detroit for being the host city. So they're in. I mean, it's great to have Stellantis in there. It's great to have Ford in there. Great to have General Motors in there. They'll be there in a big way. You'll see them right as you walk into the show floor. Shows have evolved, and we're very honest and open about that, where, at its heyday, we may have had 10 unveils over the course of a week. OEMs are doing that differently. They're doing a lot of things online. They're doing one-off events. But truthfully, from my perspective, and maybe this is a little naive, I don't think that's a huge deal for our show, because if we're a consumer show, a lot of those things were happening in advance. The consumer still wants to see the product. So no matter when those are unveiled, they still want to see that.
Right.
And if we can be the host for that, that's something that you're not going to be able to do by going to, maybe 40 different showrooms. You can do all that under one tent at the auto show and see all these different brands, experience all these different vehicles, and it's still a very positive for the consumer.
Yeah, the key is, I think with any auto show, to be successful on the consumer side is to have as many brands there as possible. Yeah. And when you look at the list of brands, most people don't realize, but there are probably 30 mainstream brands. And we're going to have a brand this year that I can't even pronounce.
Ineos.
Ineos.
heard
How's that? But there you have it. Yeah. So, and that doesn't count the ultra luxury, because we're going to have in a separate area, very private with a cool, chic atmosphere and the whole bit. We're going to have this gallery that like we had at the MGM, but on the show floor, secured, and it'll have 40 or 50 cars that are all ultra luxury like Lamborghinis and Bentleys and Rolls Royce. So if you want a little eye candy too, although you may want to look at a Rolls or a Bentley there, Dave. Yeah. So, right.
I'll look. Yeah. You bet.
Yeah, right. But it's all going to be there. So where else can you go in one place and look at 35 or 40 brands and not have to drive all over the place or California to get to see it? It's really going to be, the cool factor is that it's all under one roof, and come into a warm building in January and see it all.
Yeah.
When people have a chance to come out.
The international aspect, hearing more and more about China and, exporting vehicles and things of that sort. Any evidence of that at our show yet? Has there been outreach in that regard? Where does that stand?
So I'll say this, we're open to having any brand at the show, truthfully, because that's our job. It's to show the world what is out there. And so, we may not have some of those Chinese brands out, but those are conversations that we'll continue to have.
Sure.
As Rod mentioned, this is a foundational year in a lot of ways, and we'll continue to build that. And as we get more eyes on Detroit and more eyes on the show itself, I hope that we can bring in all kinds of brands from all over the world.
Yeah, the China aspect of this, back in 07, 08, we had a wave of China companies come in, and there were probably 7 of them that particular year with debuts. Now, that was a first run, I think, just to introduce China to the U.S. in regard to product, but it wasn't ready yet. And there's a lot of things to go through now with the new leadership in Washington coming in. That's going to change things a bit again, too. So there's a lot of playing here when it comes to government activity and what they require and policies and the new leadership, but also with shows like ours, we do have Beijing show manager coming to our show this year. And we have a good relationship with them. It just tells you that they're in a different world than we are right now. They have the Wild West of a lot of manufacturers.
Yes.
There's 7 or 8 leaders, but there are probably 75 or 100 different manufacturers. And then you take the supply chain and what they do. There's a lot of dynamics there. And we want to stay in touch with that and be engaged with them. But right now, we're going to focus on what really important to the customer.
Yeah,
right here,
and what's available here.
Right.
Yeah, right now. All right, we'll continue this conversation as we welcome our sponsor, Sherm's Candy, to the Dave LewAllen podcast. Christmas is rapidly approaching, of course, and they have something for you with a taste of Michigan. Sherm's Candy offering delicious candies, all playfully shaped like the Mitten State itself. Products include classic Michigummies, decadent chocolate Michigummies, tart and tangy sour Michigummies. Sherm's Candy doesn't forget about your furry friend either. Misha Pups, a tasty treat made just for dogs, ensuring everyone gets a Christmas treat. Find Sherm's Candy at many fine retailers across the state of Michigan. Or you can order online, shermscandy.com, for a unique and delightful Christmas gift.
You're making us hungry.
Yes,
right.
That's the idea.
Yeah, okay.
The exact idea. All right, so speaking of gifts and whatnot, tickets, are they available to the show in advance?
Absolutely.
I mean, we have the charity preview coming up on January 10th. Are tickets still available for the charity preview?
Yeah.
Take us through that, if you would.
Yeah, tickets are available for all aspects of the show. So charity preview, again, is January 10th, and those are available online right now. So DetroitAutoShow.com is the easiest way to get tickets. And then we have our public show tickets, which are on sale now, $20. And then there's some kid pricing as well and some other pricing for veterans and seniors. And then we have our industry day tickets, which are $40. And that's a little bit different because, again, you're having some industry leaders and thought leaders and experts that are coming and sharing their perspective, so a little more cost there. But they're available right now at DetroitAutoShow.com.
And have we've announced too our entertainment for charity preview.
We have.
So that,
Let's hear about it.
It's Flo Rida.
All right.
So he's obviously got a ton of hits.
Yeah.
He's been a Grammy-winning artist. He'll bring a lot of energy to start the show. We're excited about it.
Yeah.
And so that'll be
January 10th at charity preview.
Charity preview.
Yeah, on the show floor itself. So it'll be you buy your ticket. You don't have to stay later. You can see it right there at 8 o'clock on the show floor.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Looking forward to all of that. As far as the DADA, I mean, you put on the auto show, and it's a 12-month deal, but it's not all that you do. I mean, the Detroit Auto Dealers Association is the voice of dealers, right? In Southeast Michigan. And you have a role to play there in terms of state and federal levels. I mean, you're the voice, you're advocating for your dealers, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. When I first came on to the DADA,
34 years ago.
yeah. Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah.
Okay. But no, 34
No, it's
years.
a good long run.
Yeah, it is.
And
Yeah.
congratulations.
Well, thanks. Yeah. Decades. You start talking decades, that's a whole different story, right? But when I first came on, 90%, because the show was in fledgling, it was early on in the internationalizing of,
Mhm.
and probably 80% of my time was spent going to Lansing and working on policy and legislation and that type thing, and 20% was auto show. It reversed that, and then the DADA branding looked like the auto show was everything because it went North American, international. We had media all over the world. So there's been an ebb and flow and evolving of the association. And coincidentally now with the what we went through with the pandemic and the change in the show and consumer driven, still some media side to it too. It's an interesting time, and it's Sam's coming into it. It's a good time to change and transition because it's going to take some new ideas, new vision. I think I was good for my time, but that's where we got to have some things that we can change. In 5 years, I think the DAD will be doing different things, new things for the customer and education on technology. And we started a new foundation, which is all about education and also jobs. And we want to be part of that industry too, with jobs with MEDC in the state of Michigan, and bring them to Detroit and the region and to the state of Michigan. So we want to take on a bigger role.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I'm going to add to that, but
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we had a meeting yesterday about, the rash of auto thefts. And so, educating the public about the dangers of that and how these aren't just property crimes. These have real consequences. And so, working with our law enforcement, working with the state legislature to make sure that we can protect people on the roadways. We don't want that kind of stuff. And so those are initiatives, Dave, to your point, that, those happen throughout the year. And that's not just happening, in the 11 days of the auto show. That's a huge time for us. But yes, we're doing work, 12 months out of the year.
Well, and those auto dealers in communities across the state of Michigan, frankly, but particularly for the group that you most definitely support, they are viable businesses. They are community contributors. They help communities in so many different ways with support for activities and organizations. I mean, they make a huge difference in our communities.
I would say, of our 200 plus members of the DADA and all these brands they represent, and they're all over the metro area,
Right.
spread out kind of evenly, if you want to look at it that way geographically. But they employ 20,000 plus people. It's a big corporate business per se.
Yeah.
And it's great careers in that too, which we want to draw people into. Technicians, it's not like your grease monkey type thing anymore. I mean, this is high computerized type thing. So all the elements of helping out the communities they live in and being a part of it with the Little League teams and supporting that. Yeah, the dealers play a role, I think, well beyond the auto show itself. It goes into what they do in their own, which is not just focused in one geographic area. It's throughout the metro area. And we're proud of that aspect, and we want to make sure that's shared too. It's a public relations part on our part.
Yeah.
But we're, again, I've been doing it a long time. I could see Sam doing the same thing, and I see an evolution that's going to make this association and its purpose and direction will be a new horizon, a new level that it has been. So that's where I'm putting it on and putting on his shoulders right now. Right.
Well, no, I mean,
Yeah,
and
it's all good.
that's a really good point. And I joined the DADA in May, and one of the first things I noticed is just the generosity of our dealers. I mean, to Rod's point, they're helping Little League teams, they're helping other charities, they're helping other local organizations. Those communities don't thrive the way they do without the support of our dealers. I mean, Dave, you and I both come from a media background. The amount that is invested at local stations, which helps support local news and information like that's critical stuff. And it may not be things that people think about all the time, but they are pillars of the communities that they serve. It's very important.
Yeah. And, we're seeing dealer groups grow larger too, the influence that they have through consolidation and whatnot. But yes, so very important. And as part of the DADA, you have your officers, and for the auto show, you have, individuals from the dealers that chair your auto show. Talk to me about, the role that those individuals play in the show and in the success of the show?
We probably can share this answer on this, and I think from a dealer standpoint, which has been made my job easier over the years, is that when I bring them together for a meeting, they're volunteers and they're entrepreneurs, so
Right.
they're willing to take risk, they're creative, they understand business. And so when you bring that group into a room and they volunteer their time, which is, they could be doing other things, but to come in and share that and then able to then transfer that into the show and the DADA and what it should be doing, that's a great part of our organization. So I'm thrilled about having the Carl Zimmermans of the world and Todd Zott and Thad Zott and Lincoln and others that are part of it. So we're lucky, I think very fortunate to have that in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me personally, it's been helpful to shorten the learning curve, because you can lean on these dealers and ask them, well, tell me why this is a good idea, or tell me why this might be a misstep. And they'll offer that opinion pretty straightforward. But they believe in the show too. And I think for all the reasons that we love working on it, because it means so much to the city, it means so much to the families. It's an afternoon that they can come down in the winter and have something, and they see that. And so they've given their passion to it. And it's great to see that collaboration.
And for you, Rod, this is a swan song, wrapping up your career, ends with, I'm sure, what will be a very successful auto show, and handing things off to Sam, but maybe a word on, 34 years being in this community, playing a major role in the success of the auto show, but also contributing in so many other ways, in your time here. How rewarding for you has this been?
I would say, first of all, moving here in 1990 and not knowing anything about Detroit, and not initially even thinking about moving here, because I was in California at the time. It seemed like a pretty good place to hang out. Yeah. And having to buy a whole new wardrobe when I got here, it's part of the game. But I'll tell you now, I raised my family here. The journey I had no idea what the journey would be. And if you would have told me all the things would occur, I mean, there's been incredible things. You think about the Kwame time. And, I mean, there's good, bad, and
Bankruptcy.
and excitement, too, that goes along with. I mean, you want to have those things in your life. It makes a good story. So I think I've been very fortunate to have a journey that has been rewarding, and to be a part of something that gave back to community, that raised money for charity, and had some impact on the community. So the beauty is, and I'm going to digress a bit, but you ever see the movie The Princess Bride?
Yes.
And he's going through the forest and all that, and he goes, I'm the dreaded pirate Roberts, whatever. He said, but I'm like the fourth one. I passed it on. Well, I'm passing that along again, because it's time for something new, fresh, and ideas. And I know that Sam's journey with his family and himself, it's going to be an amazing journey, and he's going to do great things. So I'm happy to pass it along in some aspect. I'll miss it, but it's time.
Yeah. Well, congrats on all you've done. Now, Sam, you came to the DADA from the Michigan Association of Broadcasters.
That's right.
But as you mentioned, grew up here.
Yep.
And are staying here.
Yeah.
And will be able to make your own mark.
Yeah.
Going forward, and that has to be exciting for you.
Oh, it's thrilling. I mean, I love this city. I love this area. I mean, as Rod mentioned, I'm a diehard, pick a sport fan, and I just love what this community and the city means. I love the spirit of it. I mean, again, watching my grandfather work for General Motors, that's instilled in you as a young kid, and it's great. I drove down Woodward every day as a kid, and it's just cool to be back here in this capacity. But to go back to your last question, he set a foundation. The thing everyone tells me when I meet him is, oh, you have huge shoes to fill, and I will never fill those shoes, right? Like it's not possible. He's created something here that, again, it's generational. It's foundation. Everyone knows about the Detroit Auto Show, and he's built that. And he could have very easily said, "Hey, I'm done. Like, my time's done." But he's been very gracious in helping guide me along, and I think that actually sets up the show for success over the many years, because being able to work together, collaborate, sit next to each other in the office for the last 8 months has been very helpful, and I think it really sets us up for long-term success.
Yeah. Well, congratulations to you both.
Thank you.
Again, as we wrap up today, go through the dates, the details, tickets one more time for me, so everybody can come and enjoy the Detroit Auto Show?
So the Detroit Auto Show on January 10th, it will start with our charity preview, and we'll have our press days that day as well, press access, I should say. Charity preview has Flo Rida as our headliner, and we've got a lot of other entertainment aspects that'll be a part of that day, some surprises, which is great. Then the public show opens on January 11th, and show hours start from 9 until 8. And tickets are $20. You can get all the information at DetroitAutoShow.com. News will be happening every single day from now on, so it's good to check the website. You'll see commercial spots on TV and on radio and on social. But to your point, Dave, this is an opportunity for families to come together, experience the joy of looking at new vehicles, some of the historic vehicles, some of the luxury vehicles, but also just to get together as a community and really celebrate who we are as Detroit. So DetroitAutoShow.com, and the auto show again is January 10th through the 20th at Huntington Place.
Looking forward to it. And I thank you both, Sam, Rod, for your time today to talk about the history, the evolution, and going forward as well. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Rod Alberts and Sam Klemet, co-executive directors of the Detroit Auto Dealers Association, joining us today on the Dave LewAllen podcast. As always, we thank you for watching on YouTube, listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you go for your podcasts. We thank you for that, and share this with a friend as well if you like the conversation here today. Until next time, stay safe, be kind. The Dave LewAllen podcast is sponsored by Sherm's Candy, a Michigan-based company that specializes in awesome tasting candy that's in the shape of Michigan.